Hi, this is Daniela, and welcome to Bestie Life, the podcast, where we help you stop burnout now. If you're tired of running on empty, juggling all the things, and wondering when your life is supposed to feel better, you're in the right place. This show is your go-to space for real talk and practical strategies to help you protect your energy, create balance, and actually enjoy the life you're working so hard for. You'll get a mix of solo episodes and honest conversations with guests. My goal is to help you feel less alone, more empowered, and way more in control of your time and energy and well-being. So let's get into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're talking about something that I think surprises a lot of people when they first hear it, and that's the fact that burnout doesn't look the same for everyone. I was just asked yesterday on a podcast, can you tell us exactly what burnout looks like? And unfortunately, I can't necessarily say what it's going to look like for every single person because there's no one way all the time. There are definitely some symptoms that I can list to watch for, but it's not going to be the same for everyone. And while a lot of people just think burnout means completely falling apart, crying constantly, unable to get out of bed, and total exhaustion, while yes, burnout can absolutely look like that for some people, others, it might look like being the most dependable person in the room. It can look like high achievement. Sometimes it looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like being productive while quietly struggling underneath it all. And that's why so many people miss the signs for so long, because they're waiting for burnout to look, quote, bad enough before they take it seriously, before they take action. And so in today's episode, I want to walk you through 5 different burnout identities, the signs that often come with each one, and some practical ways to start addressing it. Now, like I said, these are only 5 ways. In my book, Balance Breakthrough, I go through many other ways that it could show up. So if you want more ideas, or if you're not hearing yourself in these ways, definitely grab that and look at some of the other ways that I mentioned in the book. But I think these 5 are definitely some of the bigger ones. And so I really want you to start understanding, how maybe burnout could be showing up for you specifically, so you can stop trying to maybe solve the wrong problem and focus on the right one. So grab something to write with, grab your favorite beverage, and let's dive in. So we're going to go straight into the first one, this first way that burnout can show up, and that is as kind of an over-functioning fixer. This means, you're the person who carries responsibility that maybe wasn't ever supposed to belong to you in the first place, but you're always the one who's going to step in, solve the problems, help everyone else, and maybe even anticipate their needs before they even ask you. And people are absolutely love having someone like you around because you make life easier for everybody else. But eventually, you become emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausted because you're functioning as the support system for everyone else around you. And so some signs this might be you, and this, just because if you have a couple, that doesn't mean you're in a state of burnout, but definitely keep an awareness of if you're constantly saying yes when you want to say no, if you feel responsible for other people's emotions, outcomes, or problems, even when they're not tied to you directly, you struggle to delegate because it feels easier to just do it yourself. You figure they're not going to do it as well as you. They're not going to get to you in the same time frame that you want it done, so you just do it yourself. You feel guilty resting while other people might need things from you. And then here's the tricky part. This kind of burnout can get praised. When you're that person, people call you dependable, reliable, selfless, the strong one, right? And meanwhile, you're becoming depleted because you are filling up everyone else's cup, but not necessarily taking time for yourself. And so one way to start addressing this type of burnout is to practice pausing before automatically helping, because not every problem is yours to solve immediately. And so a simple question to ask yourself is, am I helping because I genuinely want to, or because I feel responsible, because I feel guilty if I don't? And that awareness alone can start to change everything. So see if that one feels like you. If not, we're going to move on to the next one, which is the invisible leader. And this is a person doing leadership level kind of emotional and mental labor without the recognition, support, or authority. It can parallel and be very similar to that overachiever we just talked about, but this is the one where you're holding it all together behind the scenes. Nobody even knows that you're doing a lot of this stuff. You're managing people's emotions, solving problems, handling conflicts, supporting the team, and keeping things moving. But nobody half the time even knows you're doing it. And a lot of times you can feel that unseen feeling. And so some signs this might be you is, and this one might be more tied to work specifically, is you feel emotionally drained after work, not just physically tired. You feel resentful that people rely on you, but don't even acknowledge your contribution. They just take it as a given, like that's your role. You feel like you're carrying everyone else while nobody is checking in on you, and you're constantly on. And so this can happen, like I said, a lot in workplaces, or maybe where you're the sole caregiving roles, if you're part of that sandwich generation, like I know I am. And so the hardest part is that people often assume you're fine because, again, you appear capable. And so one way to address this is to stop normalizing unsupported leadership, because a lot of times we can convince ourselves this is just how it is. I'm also the oldest daughter, and so that oldest daughter syndrome of feeling like you have to be the person to just take care of it. That's just how things are set up. But carrying everyone emotionally without support is not sustainable. And so I want you to start identifying for this one area where you can start asking for support, clarity, or putting boundaries in place instead of silently absorbing more pressure, more responsibility, more expectations that are not yours. And so even addressing something small in this area is gonna start to grow. It is gonna matter, because burnout, that happens when we stay silent. The third area is the exhausted high performer. And this one, I'm talking to my incredibly ambitious people. You're capable, you're driven, you're productive, you're successful. But because you perform so well, people keep giving you more. And a lot of times we can become trapped in that cycle where your worth feels connected to your achievement. So every time you're achieving something, you don't kind of soak up that moment. You don't feel like, okay, I've hit my milestone, now I can take a break. You're constantly looking for that next level, that next higher level achievement, because each one doesn't feel like enough. Resting in between, not constantly striving, starts to feel uncomfortable. Doing less when I tell you to take a break, that feels lazy, unfortunately. And slowing down in general doesn't feel safe to you, because again, you've tied your worth to those achievements. And so if you're not achieving, where did your worth come from? And that's where that feeling of unsafe can come in. So there's some signs this might be you is, again, you're struggling to relax without feeling guilty. You constantly feel behind no matter how much you keep accomplishing, and your brain never fully shuts off. You are constantly going through, replaying what happened, projecting what's coming next. And you feel the pressure to maintain that image of having it all together because you've been praised all along for that productivity, even if inside you're feeling exhausted. And so one way to start addressing this type of burnout is to separate your identity from your output and start to really internalize some mindset work on the fact that you're not only valuable when you're producing, you are valuable, period. And honestly, so many high performers I work with don't realize how much of their self-worth is tied to their achievement until they try to rest. And so a powerful exercise in this is to start asking yourself, if I couldn't achieve anything for one season of life, who would I still be? And it might be at work, it might be even personally. A lot of times people set different goals, whether it's physical, marathons, different types of achievement goals. But if you could not achieve anything for one season, who would you still be? And look at the questions that brings up and start to dive into that. And that's going to help you start to break down kind of that persona. We've got 2 more to go. I know I'm going through a lot. Like I said, I go through these and more in my book, Balance Breakthrough. If you really want to dive deeper into some of the self-assessment parts of it, self-identification, as well as then those really personalized solutions for what that's going to look like for you. But let's look at number 4. The chaos controller. And this person operates in a constant state of stress, unpredictability, and urgency, almost a little bit of the opposite of some of the ones we've been talking about. If this is you, your life might feel like it's reactive all the time. You don't have a plan. You're always just reacting to what else is going on. And while you're constantly adapting to maybe changes in priorities, putting out different fires, managing crises and just handling unrealistic expectations, over time, your nervous system is getting stuck in survival mode. And eventually that chaos just starts to feel normal. And some signs this might be you might be mentally overstimulated on a constant basis. You can never fully relax because you're always waiting for the next problem. You feel exhausted even after resting, as well as you're irritable, overwhelmed, and emotionally reactive. And so one important thing to understand about this is burnout is not a personal failure. Sometimes your environment is just genuinely unstable, and no amount of morning routines or hacks are going to fully compensate for chronic chaos. They're not going to fully reset that nervous system for you. And so one way to start addressing this type is to create small moments of predictability and control throughout your day, because your nervous signal needs signs that it's safe. Okay, so that could look like carving out and having clear boundaries around maybe taking a real lunch break, or having a set end time for your workday, not checking emails late at night, creating clear transitions between work and home. And those tiny moments of consistency, of predictability of those habits are going to matter more than you realize. They don't seem like a big deal, but allowing your nervous system that space to feel safe, to relax, to re-regulate is going to be very powerful in how you start to feel in that chaos and creating more order and pulling you out of that situation. I remember feeling that way a lot 20 years ago when my journey began, having so much unpredictability as I was going through the transition of divorce, being a single mom, 2 little kids, all these kind of things, and trying to just hold it all together and handling everything, burning, the candles at both ends at home and at work, putting out all those little fires. And by creating a lot of the habits that I now do on just a day-to-day basis on autopilot, my morning routine, my nighttime routine, the constant micro moments throughout my day, those moments of consistency were so key for me to be able to make that transition. And they didn't start at these big things. They started as a couple minutes at the end of the day to list 5 things I was grateful for. So small moments like that add up over time. And our last and 5th area we're going to talk about is the disconnected achiever. And this one can feel really confusing because on paper, your life may actually look very successful. You've achieved things, you've worked hard, you may even have the career, family, goals, and lifestyle you've always said you wanted. But emotionally, you don't feel connected to all that success. You feel more numb, detached, unmotivated. A lot of times people will just say when they're in this state that they're just, quote, going through the motions. And some signs this might be you is if you don't feel excited by things that maybe used to matter to you. You feel very emotionally flat. You feel disconnected from yourself, from your life, and you're constantly questioning maybe everything. And you keep thinking, why doesn't this feel fulfilling anymore? Why doesn't this make me happy if these are all the things I said I wanted to achieve? And what often happens here is that people spend so much time performing, achieving, and surviving, they've lost connection to themselves in the process. They had this master plan, this master list, but it didn't evolve with them. It was just about checking the boxes, achieving the goals. But one way to start addressing that is then to really reconnect with yourself outside of that productivity. Not what you do, not what you achieve, not what you provide for everyone else, just you. What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel grounded? What actually brings you joy, peace, creativity? Because burnout isn't only about rest. Sometimes it's about reconnecting to who you are, to what you want, to what you're looking to accomplish. Okay, and why? And sometimes it's not even about accomplishing, but just what do you want to do? I've been painting these little paint by number pictures. I'm not great. They're not masterpieces. I'm not necessarily achieving this massive thing, but it's creative. It's an outlet. It makes me happy. And so having those little moments is what's so key for that. So to kind of wrap things up, like I said in the beginning, so many times people wait for things to get, quote, bad enough before they address it, before they really start to do something. And I can tell you from personal experience, not even from a burnout perspective, but in general, you think of a physical injury. Right now, my foot is in this massive boot over Achilles tendonitis. It's not super serious, but it started off as a small little pain. I felt it when I was doing child's pose, a little pulling in the back of my heel. Occasionally, once in a while when I walked up the stairs. It was a small, little, subtle thing that I ignored, that I let to keep building until now 2 months later, it literally stopped me in my tracks and I had to go to the doctor and now wear this boot for a period of time. And it's like, you don't want to have to wait until things get this bad before you address it, before you take action, before you do something, when possibly earlier on it could have been handled sooner. So definitely, I understand, I get it. And I think we're all victim of sometimes feeling like we can handle stuff. But if you've listened to all of these identities and thought, I can relate to some of that, that's normal. Trust me. People move between different patterns, different types, depending on the season you're in, depending on which situation it relates to. But identifying the strongest pattern is going to help you understand what actually is draining you. Because burnout is not just doing too much. Often it's just carrying too much emotionally, suppressing too much mentally, performing too much constantly, or disconnecting from yourself for too long. And the goal is not just functioning better. The goal is to create a life where you don't have to constantly recover from your everyday existence. Life is going to happen. We're going to feel pulls, strains, mentally, physically, emotionally, but you don't want to get to a point where you have to carve out this large recovery. You want to be able, throughout your normal life, be able to be addressing it in small ways throughout your day so that they don't become these bigger situations that then you need to recover from. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone that you think also needs to hear this. I'd love to know which burnout identity sounded most like you. You didn't hear yourself here, great, that's awesome, but also I'd love for you to see the full list in my book, Balance Breakthrough. You can get that on my website, on Amazon, and anywhere you can get books. So thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to see you again soon in the next episode.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you got something out of this episode that really made you feel seen, supported, or just a little bit more grounded. If you have any questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're up for it, please leave me a 5-star review. That will help more people find the show and join this community. I'll leave you with 2 of my favorite quotes. Alone we may be strong, but together we're stronger. And when we support each other, incredible things happen. So let's keep showing up for ourselves and each other and maybe even have some fun while we're at it. I'll talk to you soon.